Let's talk about the stimulus this morning because it looks like the Senate is about to screw over the little guy once again. Now, we've cataloged ad nauseum here on the show the amount of benefits that have been laid at the feet of rich corporations and rich people and across this country, right? We've seen what the Federal Reserve has been able to do to prop up companies, lending money into the economy, making sure that there's liquidity for all of these big companies. We've seen PPP loans going out to businesses. We saw cronies of the Trump administration and Nancy Pelosi and others take home billions of dollars in stimulus money under the PPP loan program. So it's no secret, right, that the big guy has made off pretty well during this whole thing. It's the little guy, though, who's going to get screwed once again here. Larry Kudlow, a White House economic advisor, is talking about the next round of stimulus money is going to be less than what we would like. So we'll get to that in a moment. But I do want to start with the big news over the weekend, which is Senator John Barrasso. He is out of Wyoming. I've had the chance to interview him a number of times, usually a straight shooter. So when he says something, it's probably going to happen. So I want you to hear what Senator John Barrasso had to say about the next round of stimulus. He pointed to a few key points in this next stimulus, and it looks like it's going to be much lower than what we thought, despite what President Trump has said. Listen to the senator.
Yeah, there's a consensus. We need to do another bill. That'll be in the next couple of weeks. And let me just tell you what I believe needs to be in it. And I think your viewers will agree. Number one, it has to focus on getting people back to work and children back in school. Number two, it has to focus on saving lives. And to me, that means more testing, better treatment, and then, of course, a vaccine. And finally, we need to provide the liability insurance for our healthcare workers, for our mom and pop small businesses, and for our schools so they can all open in a good way. Now, the Democrats have a proposal already. They passed it a month or so ago, and it's Nancy Pelosi living in handout heaven. It's direct checks to illegal immigrants. It's bailouts to big city and state pension plans that are run by Democrats. We're not going to do that. The focus of this bill has to be getting people back to work and paychecks back into their pockets.
All right, so I'm not a fan when anybody wants to play politics with just one little piece of this bill, right? So what he talked about there was what the HEROES Act specifically. And so let's cut through the smoke here, because I have no tolerance for the spin game here. So slamming the HEROES Act for a portion of it, yes, I've slammed it right here on the show for there being a bunch of bloated items in that $3 trillion HEROES Act, specifically, some of the bloat going to cannabis and other things like that, illegal immigrants and that sort of thing. I get that part of it, right? And that's open for debate for sure. And those things should be looked at. But to throw the baby out with the bathwater, forgive that metaphor, then you're making a blanket statement that it's handout heaven for all of these states which are being crushed right now. We've heard from Republicans and Democrats that their states are bleeding capital right now. They don't have the money right now to pay healthcare workers, frontline workers, fire departments, police departments, the unemployment office employees. They're having to furlough state workers because they don't have the capital. This is not just a blue state thing. Now, pension plans, I agree with that. We shouldn't be funding these additional pension plans. I agree. Under the CARES Act right now, that should be looked at and have a discussion about it for sure. But to throw the baby out with the bathwater, I think is a huge mistake in all of this. And there's a lot to like in this HEROES Act, specifically hazard pay, frontline worker pay, rental assistance. We're seeing a wave of evictions now across the country, right? Massive waves of evictions. And those people who are being hard hit right now that can't pay their mortgages, they've filed those forbearance programs with their banks. And they have gotten, they've only gotten a 3-month program through some of their banks, even though they were told they could get up to 12 months under the CARES Act. So there would be money in the HEROES Act to help those people be able to pay their mortgages. So this long list of items that's in the HEROES Act, including additional stimulus checks for those hard-hit Americans, up to $90,000 per for adjusted gross income. That's that's above the $75,000 that we saw during the first CARES Act. So it was an increase. Well, we're not going to see that. And if you heard what Senator Barrasso said, there's 3 key areas, right? The first one is targeted to those people who are out of work, who they want to get back to work. And we heard from Mitch McConnell last week, $40,000. That number is shaping up to be where they're going to start with their negotiations. $40,000. We're hearing from multiple sources now that is going to be the frontline negotiation, the very first volley in a back and forth with Democrats. My question is, how much weight will Democrats have pushing back on that number. Will they be able to increase that adjusted gross income to help more people, or is it going to be 45,000 or 50? And that's where they that's where they bend over, right? So Republicans want an adjusted gross income cap at 40, it's targeted to people that were hard hit and getting them back to work. It's like a back to work incentive. And we heard from Larry Kudlow also that this number will be below $1,200. So I'm going to read some of what Larry Kudlow had to say in this. He said that the next round of direct payments would be less than $1,200 and targeted to people in lower income brackets and without jobs. He said this in a Reuters interview this weekend. He said that kind of economic assistance will probably be very carefully targeted, he said. It's not going to be across the board. So again, any question as to whether or not this thing was going to be bigger and better, it seems to be going out the window. But then many of you are saying, but President Trump promised us that it would be bigger, better than what the Democrats want. Well, we'll see. I mean, he says it. He said it again last week.
Can Americans expect more stimulus checks from you?
The answer is yes. We're working on it right now with Congress. I want more than other people want to do, but it'll be significant numbers, great for the people of our country.
And now you have a number of senators saying that that's not going to be the case. You have a number of White House economic advisors saying it's going to be less than what Democrats want. So does he not talk to his team? Or is he just floating out some random garbage in hopes to get reelected? I don't know. But at this point, that doesn't seem to be what's going to happen here at all. A direct stimulus payment is going to be less than what Democrats have wanted, $1,200. So maybe he's living in a bizarro world where everything is the opposite of what he says. I don't know. But when Larry Kudlow, his main economic advisor, 24 hours after he says that it's going to be larger than what Democrats want, Larry Kudlow comes out and says it's going to be less than what Democrats want. So Barrasso also went on to talk about getting this done. Will we hit that timeline? That's the other big question, right? Will we hit this timeline of August 7th when they're out of there again? They come back in just a few days, so it's the 13th of July right now. They're set to come back on the 20th, 21st, back in Washington, and then they've got a few short days to get something done before they leave on vacation again on August 7th. Greatest country in the world. Can't take care of its people. It's disgusting, and the little guy gets crushed once again. Canada able to do that, $2,000 per month, taking care of people. Other countries, European Union, Australia, New Zealand, we can't. Greatest country in the world. It makes me so sick. It really, really does. So asked about that specific timeline, Maria Bartiromo pushed him on this. She seems skeptical that this is going to get done. Listen.
So you're back on July 20th, but then there's another recess beginning on August 8th, right? Do you think in that 3-week period you're going to get another stimulus plan passed and signed before you leave again, August 8th?
Well, there are a couple of deadlines, as you mentioned. One is the enhanced unemployment insurance benefits that run out on July 31st. The other is the Paycheck Protection Program, which has been so successful. That runs out on August 8th. That's helped keep about 50 million people on their, on a payroll. And in Wyoming, we had 13,000 of those loans. So, yeah, there's an urgency to get this done.
So, she goes on to talk about, yes, that people have been paid more to go back to work, so they're staying at home, et cetera. So we've heard that argument. And there's a lot of validity to that. Over 2/3 of workers who've received these benefits are making more than they'd make by being under at their job. So he answers the question. There's urgency there to get it done by August 7th before they leave town again, so he can go fly fishing out there in Wyoming. So one key part of this, you heard him talk about the $95,000 section of this, that it's going to be for adjusted gross income, that it would be much lower than that. And so I think the target, the starting point in this negotiation is a $40,000 adjusted gross income. If you make $40,000 in adjusted gross income, you would qualify. Above that, it would be petered out. They would phase it out as it would grow, as you made more, 45, 50, et cetera. Now that's the starting negotiation. Will Democrats fight back on this and try to push for it to be closer to the original CARES Act? Likely. So there's a number of people saying that it'll probably fall somewhere between that 50 and maybe 70,000 range, which was under the first CARES Act. But then he keeps also talking about the service sector. And I heard President Trump mention that. I also heard Larry Kudlow mention that. I heard Secretary Mnuchin mention hospitality, service sector, hospitals, not hospitals, hotels, and those types of employees that were hardest hit in restaurants would be a part of this next round of targeted stimulus. So it's going to be targeted and focused. Like if you qualify because you worked in a service sector, you'd have to prove that you work in that particular sector. It's not just going to be a blanket rollout of checks. You're not just going to wake up one morning and see a check in your bank account. Now, we'll see how Democrats push back on this. But right now, this is what Republicans want. Capped at around $1.3 trillion. It's not going to be anywhere near what Democrats have been calling for, upwards of $3 trillion. And, you know, President Trump has said this will be bigger and better than before. Now, Larry Kudlow was asked a direct question on this. He skipped the question specifically, and he said that he didn't have an answer specifically on what these stimulus checks would look like. So he sort of sidestepped the question when he was asked directly on CNBC. This is Secretary Mnuchin was specifically asked this question. Listen to the secretary.
We do support another round of economic impact payments. You know, in most cases, those are not checks, it's direct deposits. And we can get that into hardworking Americans' bank accounts very, very quickly.
So these benefits would be into people's hands directly. We wouldn't have to go through this whole check printing process again. We have your information on file. We can likely get this out there pretty quickly, but he did not answer the question as to how much specifically we could expect and what groups and adjusted gross income would we hit. But again, if you listen to Mitch McConnell at $40,000, that seems to be where we're headed. So we should not be doing jumping jacks and be all excited about this. I think this is bad news. I think this is bad news for most Americans right now. I think, again, what's so sad about this is that so many businesses, so many rich folks right now have been getting all sorts of different levels of bailouts and protections and abilities to write off different things under the CARES Act. And now they can write off 100% of their donations. So 100% of their income. It's any wonder why Warren Buffett just made a massive donation last week, billions of dollars. So you can write off all that income and they make plenty of money from passive income. So all the money that they get from actual income, they can donate, and now they can make as much money as they want from passive income. I mean, this is how the rich get richer, and under the CARES Act and these latest rounds of talks, that seems to be what we're getting once again. Evictions are about to hit an all-time high. The data is incredibly troubling, and so too is the forbearance level. You know, under this mortgage forbearance program, you were allowed to have up to 12 months, and that was what was proposed under the CARES Act. That is the law. But many banks have been forcing their customers who had to issue forbearances. They're saying, we're going to keep it to 3 months. 3 months is it, which is counter to what the law says. And they're being forced in that direction. Many of them can't pay their mortgages. So again, under the HEROES Act, we would have seen mortgage help up to $75 billion. We would have seen $100 billion in rental assistance. I don't hear any Republican talking about eviction assistance, rental assistance, and really it's come down to the states right now. Different states are having to put different rental assistance programs in place at the state and municipal level. So if you're interested in any of these programs, call the number 211 on your phone. Talk to a local representative in your town and ask them, are there any rental assistance programs here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, here in Seattle, Washington? It's all different. And all of these states are putting in different programs. So call 211 if you want to find out information about available programs for you in your current situation. Social Security, disability insurance, all of those pieces. Call and find out what is available for you. Because we don't have anything finalized from the Senate, and they're going on vacation. They're still on vacation. So until they get back, we won't have anything finalized. Unemployment benefits. Let's talk about this. This was a big piece of what Senator Barrasso talked about. It's what we've also been hearing from Larry Kudlow and others, that these unemployment benefits are set to run out in a few weeks. The $600 unemployment benefits. Now, what's interesting about this is we thought that they weren't going to renew them at all. It was going to be done. You're done at the end of the month. Sorry, those are drying up. Now there appears to be some discussion from Republicans that there would be an adjustment based on your income. The whole goal is to make sure that this doesn't supersede what you were making before and keeping you as a disincentive for going back to work. So again, for 2/3 of workers, they were making more than what they were making in their job. And many people, including the CBO and others, have said that this was a disincentive to go back to work. The White House, and Republicans, and Democrats too want people to get back to work, yet they want to do it in a safe and secure way without getting coronavirus. So there's liability protection, which is also being built into this bill. But the unemployment benefits look like it will be based on your specific employment amount. If you make a certain amount per week, then it's meant to not go above that. They're trying to keep you at 100% of what you made in your job, not 110%, not 120%. So the goal in these negotiations right now is that it's going to be in line with what you're currently making at your job when you were laid off or furloughed or otherwise. So that's good news, that they're trying to keep it at what you would be making if you were in the job. And there are a lot of sectors right now that the government knows they're shut down and they can't go back to work. So how do we protect those people? And that seems to be the goal right now on some of these unemployment benefits. That's encouraging. So I am encouraged by that piece of it. It's not going to be totally dead. It'll look specifically at your number, your adjusted gross income, and what you're making from your job. So that, my friends, is the very latest on the stimulus. Please support our sponsor of our show, Webull. You get 2 free stocks just for opening an account with them and depositing $100 into your account. 2 free stocks valued up to $1,400. The link is below. You need to use that link in order to get those free stocks. So our thanks to Webull for supporting the show, and my thanks to you for always being a subscriber to this show and joining our channel memberships as well. Much love to all of you. I thank you for that. And Grover thanks you as well, don't you, buddy? He's the best co-host in the world.